Hello, welcome to part 2 of my sit down with Paul Sanders in his lovely studio here as well. So we've talked a little bit about Paul's kind of back life, I suppose. I want to say that's probably not the word. Background, yes. Backstory, that's the word. That's definitely the word. Thank you. But we wanted to talk a little bit more about, I suppose, the kind of the emotional side of work and how photography can be an outlet, more of, people describe it a bit more probably of the arty side, I suppose, isn't it, in a way, and it's kind of that expression by using photography as well. But before we dive into that, as always, don't forget to subscribe to the Fotospeed YouTube channel and sign up to our newsletter on photospeed.com. That's a little bit of the housekeeping out of the way. Paul's sick of hearing me say this today, so I think we're fine. You know the score. So, right. So let's talk a little bit, about your work.
Yeah.
And a little bit more of a chat, really, as well, about, because I think we come from different sides of photography, I suppose, but we both come from the same place. Is that way to describe it?
Yeah, I think that's about right. Because for me, photography has been a road to recovery, and a road of personal expression. I think it's similar for you.
Yeah, I think so.
But we come at it sort of from over here like that. We're joining the same motorway.
Yeah, I think
at different junctions.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think probably the opposite.
Yeah,
but I think for me, my photography it's showing that chaos.
Yeah,
and I know you like the stillness and kind of that side of things, but I think with my work, it's very much about that chaos and getting that chaos out of my head into my work.
Yeah,
where I think it's the experience of that.
Yeah, my photography is the thing I want to get over in most of it is stillness, is calm. And the reason for that is because for quite a long time, I felt like I was in chaos. I mean, I was in a sort of crisis point in my life. And to be able to photograph things that were still or had an air of stillness and an air of calm was aspirational for me. It was a place I wanted to get to. And I find that using photography as an outlet for that kind of thing really helped. It somehow makes me calmer. I don't know about you, but when you get the chaos out of your head onto the paper, there's a release.
Yeah, I think for me
that comes from it.
I don't think the computer helps in that.
No.
It almost is, it's still chaos when you're editing, and I don't know if it's the same for you. And maybe that's why film is a really nice way to work in a way.
I honestly don't know.
I think for me anyway, my printing process as well, it's that we print it and it goes through the press and things, and it becomes something else. I think it's at that point that it's a release as well.
And I think it's one of the joys of printing is that when you hold the print, you contemplate it in a completely different way to how you view an image on a screen. And for me, that's the culmination of what photography is about, because you've gone from something real and then you turn it into something that you can't touch. It's all largely for most people, ones and zeros. And there's a separation.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a disconnect between what you've got on the screen and what you are, because you can only control it by pressing keys. It's only when you get it back in your hand do you appreciate the subtleties of tone or colour, the exceptional grace of a line, or there might be a particular curve that you really enjoy, and it's only then can you almost luxuriate in it. And I look at the prints, and when I hold them and use, you can still smell a bit of the ink on the paper. It's as visceral an experience as making the picture, because it engages all of your senses. Until I started shooting roll film, I would always lick the paper to check I got it the right way up.
Yeah.
So you're even using taste as well as your smell, and you can, when you rub your fingers on the surface.
Yeah, I'm a strong believer of that.
Yeah, that whole tactile sort of approach. You've got this tangible thing that you have produced, but you've worked it out with something else. It's kind of a meeting of souls, if you like. Your subject's soul and your soul come together, and you produce a print, and then you can really appreciate the beauty, and that's what I find calming. So I look at the picture that I've simplified and stripped back, and then looking becomes feeling, and I can use that to, just bring me down. It calms my anxiety, slows my breathing down, and that's the thing about photography that I love. It has this ability to take a person from a state into another state. But many of us don't recognize that. However, when you talk to people, they'll say that they lost track of time while they were photographing. That's the state of flow.
Yes.
That's a creative state. That's a meditation. But many people go, "Oh, meditation, woo!"
Yes.
Because they expect you to kind of walk around in sandals and things.
Sit on the floor.
And I do have sandals on. Barefoot sandals too. But it's important to recognize that in that state of flow, what you're doing is you're meditating on something. You're allowing yourself to be completely present to that, and that's why photography is so good for you.
Yes. Yeah.
It's good for your mental well-being. It's good for your emotional balance, because it allows you that pause in your day.
Yes.
And then printing reaffirms that pause.
Yeah.
And what I mean, a lot of the people that come on my workshops, I had a lady here the other week, and we printed out one of her images. She never printed a picture before, and I printed out one of the photographs that she took, so pretty much 24 inches. I mean, Colin thought his happy day had come, a massive print, and I held it up like this for her, and she said, "Did I do that?" I was like, yeah. She couldn't believe it, and the look of joy on her face, the excitement when she held her first print. That's what photography should be.
Yes.
Every time it should be the first time. You should have that excitement. You shouldn't take it for granted. You shouldn't be cynical about it, because every time is a privilege. And if you see somebody who's never printed hold a print and look at their work, you see them looking at it in greater detail.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And
that to me is magic. Yeah. That's the power of photography.
But again, also, we shouldn't be striving for that perfection either.
No.
It's going to be something else. I think it's those little quirks that make it.
Yeah.
You think, oh, I didn't notice that before, but actually I quite like that.
Yes.
And you don't notice it on the screen.
Yeah. Because we're so used to looking at screens.
Yeah.
We look at a phone, we look at an iPad, we look at the TV. Everything is screens. To hold something, to truly see into it, is a very different experience, a much more real experience than looking at something on screen, then blowing it up to 100% and looking at the things and taking out all the bits you didn't like. It's okay for you to do a print and look around it and go, oh, I didn't notice that. But in a weird way, I like that.
No, definitely. I think it's all those little, I know in my work anyway, it's all those little imperfections and things that make it. I mean, yes, I could agonise over it and spend a lot of money probably printing more and more until I got it perfect. But one, I haven't got the money to do it. But also, it becomes something else. They're unique.
That's it. That imperfection makes them unique. And I think, if you're hand printing in a darkroom, every print is different. If you're doing Polaroid lifts, or you're doing pinhole photography, or anything where there's an element of variation, human error. When you're using your computer, it's very easy to churn out the same thing. We have presets that everything can be managed. But I always encourage people not to erase the imperfections, because, like I said in the first bit, nothing is perfect. So actually, they're what tell us the story of that particular thing. I mean, the Japanese have this beautiful thing where they take something that's broken and they repair it with gold. And it's called kintsugi, because they believe that the flaws exaggerate, amplify, build up the beauty, increase the worth of something, because it's got a history, it's got a story.
It's the beauty in the ordinary,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah. You elevate the ordinary to become extraordinary, and that's what I think is so wonderful about photography, because we all see the world differently. We are all so different. You know, our fingerprint. If you think how many people are around the world, every single one of us has a different fingerprint.
Yes.
And that's amazing. And yet when we photograph, we try and photograph the same.
Yes. I think we're conditioned for these algorithms,
Exactly,
I suppose, aren't we? That
so
pushes that.
To allow that imperfection into your work, you're building in uniqueness, you're building in tension. And, you know, far be it from me to criticize Camera Club judges, because I personally think they have a thankless task. But I think that this need for perfection has come from people judging work as not good enough because it's not perfect enough. Whereas actually, if they look at it and see what the work is about rather than what the work is of,
yes,
there's a big difference. You know, this is a picture of a lighthouse, therefore it's got to be like this, and, you know, no rust on it. This is a picture of a steam engine. The rails on the wheels have got to be in a certain place. This is a picture about a steam engine. You've got all that drama of the steam. You've got some movement. You know, you've got that kind of belching engine that's powering along. Get some of that into your picture. Get the imperfection that allow your creative and perceptive imagination to build that in, that rawness. And you've got a picture about something, not just a picture of.
Yes.
You know, it's like estate agents take pictures of houses. And they work because they're pictures of houses and of your dining room and all, and you sell your house. But as a creative, we're about something. We're about our subject. We're not of our subject.
Yes.
You know, so the picture has to be about you and about your subject. And that means combining the imperfections that both you and your subject have and working with those.
No, definitely. I think it's always a very, especially in kind of my work with street photography and things, it's quite a fine line where really my work is about me and chaotically walking along the street and they're all lopsided and whatever, and there's people that catch my eye, so I take a picture of them and things like that and things. So I kind of understand in kind of my work that there's this juxtaposition, I suppose, between I take my pictures because I'm walking on the street and kind of things catch my eye and a bit chaotic to get kind of that chaos out of my head. But I understand that when people are looking at the pictures, be it on Instagram or kind of live and they're all beautifully framed on the wall and things, that they usually probably see the subject, and then how that relates to them, and that whole, because of the tradition of that type of photography, or Western tradition anyway, because in the East and in Japan especially, it's very different in what they do. And I'm more kind of leaning towards that side of things. And how it can be translated, I think, is always difficult. I don't know. Do you kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I always say that, you know, you make pictures for yourself, and then when you share them with other people, whether it's digitally or, you know, in a print in a gallery, you're giving that person the permission to view your work in their own way. And it's like the flower series that I shoot. You know, they mean a lot to me. They're very personal. They're very much a reflection on who I am and where I was mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever, when I made the picture. Some people view them as just flowers, and that's absolutely fine. Some people see themselves in the picture. I mean, I had a person purchase one from an exhibition that I'm running at the moment. And when I delivered the print to him, we had a long conversation about what the picture meant to him,
Mm.
about how he saw himself in that particular image, and he really connected with it. And there were similarities about how we connected with the picture, but his view was very different, and it was a view that I couldn't see as the photographer because I could see me in it and not him. But he couldn't see me in the picture; he could see himself.
Yeah, I think
I really like that because it sort of it widens your appreciation of what your work does for people.
Have you ever read Roman Barthes' The Death of the Author?
No, I haven't read that one. I've got the
He puts it very
camera
poetic. Camera Cedar.
Yeah, somewhere. I know it's
Something
up there
like
somewhere.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, read definitely. It's only a little short essay.
Yeah. I've not read that one. Actually.
Yeah, read that because it's all about, it's referring to literature,
Yeah.
but it applies to photography as well because
Yes.
it's Barthes,
Yeah.
and how basically, as like you said, really, that once we kind of publish that work or show that work, we don't matter.
Yeah.
We have our own artistic kind of reasons for
Yes.
it. However, at that point, it becomes the viewers, and they interpret
Yeah.
it in their own
Exactly.
way.
Yeah.
I suppose that's why they can either like it or not like it,
Yeah.
or they're looking for something in it that isn't there, perhaps.
Yes.
Like a social documentary thing,
Yeah.
something, or like your work could be
Yeah.
a still life, and
Yeah.
they're looking for that kind of
Yeah. But
study.
it's one of the reasons I don't give my work fancy titles. Because if you say the title of it is, whatever it might be, you've thought really hard about it, you've given it some fancy title, you're effectively telling the person how to view that picture.
Yes.
So I just call mine, it's like my flower series, they're just the names of the flowers. The landscapes I take are always the place, not, sort of dawn through clouds or anything like that. It's just like London, or Manchester, or whatever lake, or wherever it is, because I think then you've just given them a location. You're not telling them how to look at the picture. You're not telling them what to see, what to receive. You've just given them a tiny bit of information. And I sometimes think that we overdo it when we, put too much information in the picture, in terms of the text. Because for me, photography is the same as poetry. And I love the fact that poetry is experiential, photography is experiential. One person reading a poem will get something different out of it to another. One person looking at a photograph will get something different. And I think they're so close. There's a lovely marriage between the two. And you can leave your work quite ambiguous and let the people viewing the work do the work. Let them enjoy it in their own way without being told this is a picture of dawn through clouds over a rock at such and such a place, because they can see that bit.
Or have a big long essay at the front,
Yeah.
a 6-page essay at the front.
You don't really need it. It's nice to have an explanation of why an artist sees in a certain way, but you don't need to be told how to see a picture.
Yeah.
You can look at it, and some things you understand and some things you don't, and it's okay. I mean, I get as much pleasure from people who don't like my work. That's not an invitation to dislike my work. But if people engage with your work but don't like it, that's as valuable as somebody who likes your work.
That's probably more interesting.
It
more
is,
engagement.
yeah.
Talk to them and say,
because I think when people stick with what you're talking about or what you're showing, but they don't really like it, but they take the time to comment in a non-abusive way, you've really won. Because if they've spent time looking at your work but they don't like it, and they've still bothered to look at it and engage with it and decide that they don't like it, that's far more valuable than somebody going around and going, yeah, that was really nice.
Yeah. I think someone said to me the other day that if you're walking along the street and someone says, "Oh, nice trainers," what do you say to them?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. But if someone says, "Oh, where'd you get them? I don't like them," or something like that, it's a bit more.
Yeah.
And that's probably what we all kind of.
Yeah, it's engagement.
Yeah.
Whether it's positive or, let's say, negative, engagement.
Yeah, and I think that's all we're trying to strive for.
Yeah.
Be it a public engagement or private kind of emotion, something inside to someone. I suppose we're all kind of striving for that in a way.
Exactly.
And I suppose to be happy with kind of yourself as well, I suppose you've got to overcome that, chasing that engagement a little bit, I suppose.
You've got to not chase the need for validation from other people. It's important to care about what other people think of your work, but it's not important to shoot for the validation of others. I mean, I like hearing what people say about my work, whether it's good or bad, but I don't photograph for that response. But when you share your work, you should expect a response from people, whether good or bad, and you should meet them all the same. You know, you should go, I'm not listening to the bad. It's as important, if not more important, to listen to the ones that are more negative, because you probably learn a little bit more about yourself.
And it may push you along a little bit. Perhaps.
Exactly. Just push merrily along out of your comfort zone a little bit.
I think that's where we grow, isn't it? When we're out of that little bit of comfort zone, not too much, because it could probably cause you some problems, but just push you a little bit.
But I think if you share your work, you know, it's a big deal, because normally when you share something, you are hoping that somebody's going to like what you do. If you put an exhibition up, it's a lot of money. You know, with your printing, your framing, you know, the marketing. There's a lot of you gone into that. But you know, it's a brave thing to do, to exhibit. To put yourself out there is brave. And you can't please all the people all the time. So as long as you are pleased with what you've done, then let other people view it freely without, you know, the constraints of what you want them to see in your work. You know, and I think that
it's forcing people down this little narrow tunnel.
They've
only got one way or the other. The reactions are going to be very extreme. It's going to be one way or the other. But if you leave them a little bit, for me anyway, they kind of find their own way a little bit.
They do.
And I'm fascinated I always say, well, what do you kind of see and do and things? It caused me some trouble when I was at university, because they want it all on paper and all that so they can mark it. But it's quite interesting that in that sense you can tell people a little bit and lead them, but then it just expands out and things as well.
And you know, that's the important thing, and it's not worrying about whether other people perceive your work as good or bad. It's just your work. You know, so this is my work. Here you go. This is what I do. I'm happy enough with it to put it on a wall and share it with you. But my motivation wasn't pleasing you, but I'm interested in what you think.
Definitely. Almost if you kind of, I like almost showing pictures I'm quite not happy with, because it's usually those are the ones that people go, oh wow, they're amazing. What's wrong with it? But so I think hopefully that has been insightful for people and given a bit of a different angle to photography, I think, as well, because I think we get hung up on the technical, the tech, the gear as well. Definitely. So I think it was important we discuss little things like this.
I think so. I mean, it's really important for people to try and find their own way amongst all the noise that comes in to photography. It's a very personal journey. And I think when you get in touch with that, actually there's a lot of fun to be had that isn't in the norm. You know, so I would encourage more people just to go with their instinct on things rather than go with what convention says.
Yes, no, definitely. I think it's just going out with a camera and just shooting what interests you. Everything can be beautiful. I know that Dido Mariano says, a Japanese photographer, that he says that basically everything is important and beautiful. And you probably see in his work, he takes that to the extreme. But what he does to the work and things like that is beautiful as well. And it's there's a little bit of a kind of balancing act possibly in some places, but everything can be. And there's no such thing as a bad picture.
No, there's not. I mean, I always think there's no such thing as a bad picture. There's only a closed off mind. And I think it's really important that we approach subjects with an open mind. Even if it's just in your garden or around your house, there are things to photograph that if you look at them differently, that you see a beauty within them. And it doesn't have to be, the most perfect of everything. It can be a chipped bowl, that you've had for decades. Something that somebody special to you left. Just photograph the way that perhaps the pages of a book are thumbed. Look at the way the light falls on it, and enjoy the things that are around you, the everyday things, because they're the things that add richness to your life. That's where I come from.
Definitely. Well, I think that's a really good place to stop. I think.
Yeah.
Because,
we'll stop before the camera dies again.
Yes, before it overheats again. Thank you, Sony. Say that.
Oh dear.
Well, thank you so much for watching.
Fuji film.
Yeah, big roll. We can do 10 minutes at a time on a roll. Well, thank you so much for everyone for watching and sticking with us in this one. And thank you for Paul as well for
it's a pleasure. Thank you for
allowing me to invade his space and do some videos today.
It's been a pleasure as always. It's always good to see you.
Lovely. Well, as always, don't forget to subscribe to the Fotospeed YouTube channel and also sign up to our newsletter on Fotospeed.com. And don't forget, we release new videos every Thursday here on YouTube. So on that note, I'll see you next Thursday.
Bye.